So a super common question I get as a government contracting instructor is how much money can my small business make selling to the government? I've seen some BS stuff out there on YouTube and on the internet talking about how much you can make and how easy it is. So I wanted to tell you exactly how you could see precisely what your small business could make selling to the US government. And that's today's video. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is just what is the average amount that a small business can make selling to the government. We know exactly what the average is. So we're going to talk about across the board. The next thing I'm going to show you is how you can check what your specific type of business can make selling to the government. So whether you're in plumbing or you're in cybersecurity or you have consulting services or training, I'll show you how to find out what the average is or what you can make selling to the government. And finally, I'm going to address what happens if you don't have a business. You're starting a business. Should you start a business and sell to the government? I'm going to talk about why I don't recommend that and what you can do instead. So all that and more, let's go. Hey, Rick Howard here. I'm a former government procurement officer. I managed over $82 billion in federal contracts, and now I help people learn how to sell to the US government. So if you're a business selling to the government, if you're a person looking to get into the profession of government contracting, this is the place for you. All right, we're on the Small Business Administration website here. And so this was released right before Trump took over. But FY25, fiscal year 25 is what we're in now. And the numbers for fiscal year 24 came out. When I say the numbers, I mean, how much did the US government spend on small business contracts? You've probably heard me say before that 23% is typically the target, and that actually increased, and I believe it was 28%. Yep, it's right here. So 28% of contracting dollars for fiscal year 24 was awarded to small businesses, and that was for the tune of $183 billion that went to small businesses. We can even look further at the breakdown for small business, small disadvantaged business, woman-owned small business at $31.68 billion. Service-disabled veteran, $32.8 billion. HubZone, 17. So you can go to the SBA website. Now, to get the average that a small business made in FY24 selling to the government, we don't just need the total amount of small business spending. We also need to know the total amount of small businesses that sold to the government. And the FY24 number for small businesses is not out yet. We're expecting it in the spring of 2025. I'm recording this in February of 2025, but we have a pretty good idea of what those numbers are going to be based off of what we saw in 23. So let me explain. Historically, small business government contracting numbers have gone down, meaning the number of small businesses selling to the government has been going down year over year. Yet the government has been spending more money on government contracts year over year. This shows 22 and FY23. So in FY22, we had 62,670 businesses. In FY23, we had 61,298 businesses. Now, the decline in small businesses from FY22 to fiscal year 23 was 2.2%. Now, if we apply that 2.2% decline to FY24, remember, we still don't officially have the numbers out yet, we would go from 61,298 businesses selling to the government to 59,947. And we could predict FY25 as well. I'm going out on a limb here. But if we apply the same percentage, now we go from 59,947 to 58,632. That's a lot of math. Why did I even do it? So what we got now is a predicted number of small businesses and the actual spending for fiscal year 24. And then I did a similar prediction for spending in FY25. So keep in mind, the numbers I'm about to show you are my predictions. I could be off if more small businesses were on contract, or if I'm totally off for FY25, although I'm probably not off by that much. So let's take a look at the numbers. Here's what we know. In FY23, there were 61,298 small businesses that sold to the government. The government spent $178 billion on small business contracts, making the average $2.8 million per small business. Now, this can fluctuate wildly depending on the small business, what they're selling, but that's the average. Now, FY24, 59,947 small businesses are the predicted number of businesses that sold to the government based on my 2.2% decline. Again, a prediction on my part, but we know $183 billion more, so an increase in spending from FY23, which would make the average of FY24 for a small business at $3.05 million. Now, I'm really going out on a limb for FY25 because I'm predicting the number of small businesses selling to the government, and I'm predicting how much the government is going to spend on small businesses. And with everything going on right now, could these numbers be complete in total BS? Yes, but I'm still going to show them to you. So here's what I came up with. Now, if we continue the 2.2% decline in number of small businesses selling to the government, we get this number right here, 58,632. What I also had to do is predict how much the government is going to spend. So there's a 3.5% increase that we know from FY23 to FY24. And assuming we spend more money, and I'm going to go with that 3.5% increase, that gives us $189.4 billion spent on small businesses. So I'm predicting less small businesses selling, but more money spent, which is going to give an average of $3.23 million per small business. What we know is the average small business in 2023, FY 2023, made $2.8 million a year. We are guessing in FY 24 that the average small business made a little over $3 million a year. We'll know exactly when the final numbers come out in the spring from the SBA. And then we are taking a big leap and guessing that if we have the same number of businesses declining year over year and the same amount of increase from the past 2 years, that we're going to have about $3.2 million as the average for small businesses. And this helps you how? Well, it might not help you at all, except to understand that the average small business does make a significant amount of money selling to the government. But if you're selling mousetraps, are you going to make $3 million a year or $3.2 million in FY25? Actually, I want to say no, but I don't like to guess. So let's actually take a look. I don't even know. Does the government buy mousetraps? All right, guys, this is a report that I ran just on pest control services. I think it dovetails really nicely into the next piece, which is how can I look and see what can my business make? So let's say that you are in the pest control business, right? Well, what I can see here, I ran a report from basically fiscal year 20 till now. It's FY25, the beginning of. And here's what we found. If you look in the bottom corner here, we found $215 million and change of that's obligated dollars. So that's not even the total contract amount. That's just what's been awarded so far, what's been obligated rather so far for pest control services under that specific code. The average contract was $197,000. So if you're in the pest control business and you're looking at selling to the government, what you can do is you could come in, you can run a report on your specific code and get a sense of, okay, what is the average contract for me, right? So here it could be about $200,000. There were 1,090 results that came up. And by the way, there's other codes. I could run this for S207 product service code and get something completely different. But this is an example of how we can look very specifically at what you do and find out what is the average contract award for a company like mine, right? Not only that, it's giving us the businesses. I mean, this is giving us the actual contract values, right? So here we're seeing a bunch of zeros, but as we go down, you can see, I told you what the average was, but these contract values range all over the place. You have 185,000 here, 35,000 there. We've got 25,000, 1,600. So again, this is probably a lower dollar, a lower end government contracting opportunity. But look, if you're in pest control, if you're going to, or you're selling to a home, what is your average value for a contract with a house, right? It's probably not $145,000. What that actually does, this enables you to have B2G or business to government revenue, as well as the regular business revenue that you have coming in, selling to other businesses, selling to residential. So you actually, if you're in the pest control business, you could have 3 streams of income. You could have B2C or business to consumer. That's you selling pest control services to a home, a residence, like my residence, my family's residence, your family's residence. You could have B2B, which is business to business revenue. And so that is a separate stream of revenue where you're actually selling to companies. Maybe you're going into stores and doing pest control there. And you could sell to the government or B2G. And so now we know that when we say over a couple hundred of million in spending over the past few years, lower dollar contracts, for the average contract value is $200,000 for pest control services. So I don't want to make it sound like that's chump change, right? You don't need too many of those potentially to make it worth your while. You just have to decide. Now, we could run this exact same drill for cybersecurity services. We could run the same drill for anything, any code. And that's where we usually start with the code. But you can also search by keywords in USA Spending, which is a little clunky. In fact, right now, part of the system is down, or else I'd include it in this video. And then there are paid for tools which are usually a little bit faster and work a little bit better. Okay, so that's how we find out more specifically about our own business. But what about the last piece? What if you don't have a business, right? And you're thinking about starting a government contracting business. Now, I will typically say, I think that this is a bad idea. I think if you're going to start a business, you should sell to businesses, B2B, as we already talked about, or consumers, B2C. Why? Because it is much faster and it is much easier. And I will go toe-to-toe with anybody who thinks government contracting is easier than either of those two. Look, government contracting, it takes 6 to 18 months to win a contract, typically, because there's a lot of work that you have to put in before a solicitation comes out. And then there's government bureaucracy and spending delays. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not as easy as people will make you think, or fast. And the other thing is, if you are going to sell to the government, wants to see that you actually have a business and know what you're doing. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to sell accounting services to the government, but you've never sold accounting services even commercially, if you came to me as a former government procurement officer and said, hey, I'll provide your accounting services, I'd say, okay, who have you sold those services to? And they don't know, but I do the bookkeeping at my house and I saw a middleman video. No, get out of here, right? Maybe you were an accountant before, or maybe you're a CPA and you want to start your own firm. Great. But unless you have funding to keep you going until you win your first government contract, unless you are very well trained in how to sell to the government, I would advise you to sell to other businesses and consumers first. And aside from the fact that I could make a sale this week, like today, you could literally watch this video and say, hey, Rick, I want to take your certification program. I want GovClose. I want the CRM. I want it all. You get on a call with my sales team. I can make that sale this week and get paid. Literally, I could get paid today, right? If you want to get trained and go through the whole process. I use that as an illustration for you because you need to make revenue. You need to have revenue coming in and you need to have past performance to sell to the government. You have to be credible. So start your business B2B, B2C first. By the way, I'd love to talk to you about that. I sell B2B and B2C as well as to the government. So that's how I know this is faster and easier than selling to the government, not a blue ocean, not your super easy, quick win, okay? You could waste a lot of time and money trying to sell to the government if you don't already have a business. Now, are there exceptions to this? Of course, there's always exceptions. One exception would be the government is reaching out to you, right? Because maybe you have a specific skill set, right? Even though you don't have a company that's necessarily selling, maybe you've been in a government office for a while and they want to hire you to work in that office, right? That's different, right? So start your own LLC. They want to hire you. You're the product and you're a proven entity in that agency. That's completely different. That's not what the whole middleman thing is talking about. That's nonsensical. I've done other businesses about it. So there are times where you can just go right in and start selling to the government. It could be expertise. It could be a product. It could be, with new technology, it could be that the government is funding you to develop a new technology through the SBIR program. I think that's another potentially good avenue, although we also want to make sure we have an eye on selling to businesses, right? So we want to have, they call it dual use. Even the government wants you selling to commercially as well as to the government for most of those projects. There's a lot of reasons for that, but hopefully this was good for everybody. We're going to do a series of these instructional videos on how you can see not only how much you can make, but hey, what are solid performing businesses selling to the government? What are, though, we just touched the tip of the iceberg here with spending. How the next question would be, hey, how do these pest control businesses actually sell to the government? I can see who they're selling to. I could see how the government buys, and we can reverse engineer the entire project for a pest control business or any business. And that's what we need to get you to the point of doing. And that's how you're going to be successful. Find opportunities before the solicitation, influence in most cases, win that contract. We'll see you next time.